It's said that there's a glass ceiling that over the last few years and decades, more and more women have been breaking to get into the top notch of business positions. Our next guest actually didn't break a glass ceiling, she broke a glass deck. Kathryn Harper, welcome.
Thank you.
So we have spoken before about your history and career. Tell our viewers, what was historic about your position?
I set sail literally in 1986, pardon me, and for the following 10 years worked internationally on 4 different cruise lines. And in 1994, I became the first American female purser in Holland America Line's 120-year history.
Now, I know because I'm a ship buff that Holland America is a very traditional sort of company.
Holland America Line and Cunard, I believe, are the 2 oldest lines sailing,
right.
Still sailing. The English and the Dutch invented cruising,
right.
Crossings, passenger ships.
Yeah.
And yes.
And there were women working as stewardesses and maybe some other professions, but there weren't very many women in a uniform
officers, no,
like this.
Indeed. Not back then, certainly. And the other female purser was Dutch, and the other American was male at the time. And so it was, I guess I didn't think about it being so special, but looking back on it, it was pretty cool.
Now, where are you from originally?
Hawaii. Born and brought up in Hawaii.
So do you think that's what kind of led to your love of ships? I mean, were you one of those people who saw the ships come into Honolulu and think, boy, one of those days I want to work on board?
That much I didn't think about. My father was a Navy man. He joined the Navy to get to the islands and to travel throughout the Orient and the Pacific. And growing up near and on the water, just with a love of the ocean, a respect for its culture, its traditions, the economics, the environmental impacts, just the whole package, just growing up with it. And when I was in college for the first time and not doing so well, my father said, well, if you can't see yourself in academia, then try to see the world. And I did so via ships. And the first ship I was on sailed around the islands of Hawaii.
Which ship was that?
The USS Constitution.
The
Independence and Constitution were sister ships.
Great historic ships.
Very beautiful.
Constitution was the ship that Princess Grace, well,
yes.
then Grace Kelly,
yeah.
took to marry
Monaco
to marry Prince Rainier.
Proper steamships.
Proper steamships.
They don't make them anymore, the steamships, and no more wood. Yeah.
It's kind of unusual to meet a woman who is passionate about ships like you are.
Is it? I suppose, I don't know. It just is a wonderful industry. The glory days of traveling. I think the cruise line industry, I was fortunate to be there at the very end of its glory days, so to speak. I think the cruise line industry went through what the airline industry went through in the 70s when air travel became less of an occasion. But cruising and crossing remained an occasion probably till the late 90s and early 2000s. And then the advent of Carnival cruise lines and the very affordable cruises, while introducing a form of travel to a much greater audience, somewhat diluted the experience because you lost the formal nights and the tuxedos and the fine dining. And
do you think that's all gone?
With a handful of exceptions. I think Seabourn, although Seabourn now has sort of the barefoot elegance motto, I don't think it'll ever go back to the glory days, the cocktail lounges, the formal nights, the tuxedos, the captain's tables. This picture is taken on a formal night, and it was unusual. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I remember in 1997, 98 when the film Titanic came out, that they actually said that they believed it led to an increase in cruise ship bookings. People were scared of it because they thought it was going to scare everybody away, but people said, wow, that's so elegant, and the dressing up and all of that.
It is. It's an experience. And in addition to being the first American female officer with Holland America Line, I was dispatched promptly to their flagship, the Rotterdam 5.
Well, you brought a picture with you. I don't know if they can see it here. I mean, for those of us who love ships, the Rotterdam 5.
The last Grand Dame.
The last
of
great
the seas.
ship.
The Rotterdam 5 and the QE2.
And I guess I'm happy to say that this ship has been preserved. She's not sailing anymore, but she's now in Rotterdam.
Rotterdam as a floating hotel.
So what was it like working on board that ship?
It was magic. It was just magic. The ship belies the passenger size was relatively small at the time, less than 2,000 people, which was it sounds a lot, but it's very manageable. Now you have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. You don't see the same people twice, and it's almost like, why bother? But the Rotterdam 5 was an elegant ship. Lots of wood interior, which you'd never see anymore today. In fact, the staircases had the dividing walls that separated the classes from one another.
Class, second class.
And absolutely.
Right.
So it was an awkward ship in some respects, because at the time the Rotterdam, at the tail end of her life as a seagoing vessel, new ships were being built, and everybody had an outside suite with a balcony, and those things weren't really heard of when the Rotterdam was constructed. But it has a proper bow, a proper stern, everything in between, and the best showers, ship showers, steamships, the best showers in the world.
Now, when you went to sea, you were, you had a maritime background with your father growing up in the islands. How was it personally? I mean, did you come across sexism and homophobia? I mean, at that time, did you come out at sea, as it were?
Not really, no. And a lot of the gay and lesbian community was in the crew amongst the different nationalities. And it was actually very safe in many ways, and very accepted, and almost ahead of its time, generally speaking, compared probably to North America. The sexism was probably actually more rampant than the homophobia, because as an American female officer, I was rather an anomaly.
Well, because this was at that time, a very Dutch company.
Very. Oh, the flagships of the vessels determined the officers. Italian, British, Dutch, French, very few. Typically, very few Americans on staff. No crew members were Americans. Most Americans, if as many as you would find, would be in the cruise department, entertaining,
but not
organizing events and things.
Not on the bridge, and not at not
in the captain's table, not on the bridge, not in the engine rooms, not on deck. And the purser's office is sort of Grand Central Station of the floating hotel. And there's on-stage and off-stage responsibilities. There's the passenger side and the crew member side. Lots of administration, lots of accounting. Back in the good old days, I had a safe full of $1 million in various currencies and stamps. And now, of course, it's all cashless, and it's a very different industry now. But the sexism was, it was sort of jokey. Oh, here comes the purser, the American purser, the tall American purser. But the homophobia was not for me, not there as evident.
At what point during that did you realize that you were lesbian before you went to sea, or is that a revelation that one day looking over the horizon came to you?
Over the horizon, over the horizon.
Yeah.
I was pretty much a loner. I look back at how, it's such a cliche, how Ellen came out. She was alone for a long time, and I was alone for a long time. I just thought I liked being alone. I just thought I was a really good loner. And the few women that were on the ships became recluses, or they drank and did drugs a lot, and I didn't want to go down either one of those.
Because that is kind of the dark side of that industry. It's a hard life.
It is. You're 7 days a week in a uniform of some kind, serving the largely American traveling public, who can be pretty demanding.
Yes.
And you're in an enclosed environment with anywhere from 10 to 20 to 30 nationalities, languages, religions, dietary expectations, personal space.
And the one thing there always is plenty of alcohol.
Alcohol, unfortunately. Some drugs in the early days. I remember sailing up from the Caribbean on a repositioning cruise up to New York, and we were boarded at 2 o'clock in the morning by the DEA, because at that time, the cruise ships coming up from the Caribbean, Jamaica, South America, going up to Alaska or going up to New York, were typically empty with passengers, but often typically full of crew members who were shipping various illicit materials from south to north. Yeah, from south to north, and the DEA finally learned of this trend in the early '90s, and started cracking down quite a bit, and the Coast Guard too.
Right.
So that was the dark side of.
Yeah. What was the worst part of that experience and the best part?
Probably one and the same experience: a shipboard fire. This was on April 15th, 1992.
The anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic.
And tax day.
And
that's why I remember.
And Lincoln's assassination. April 15th is kind of a bad day.
Oh,
but
dear.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. It was payday, and I had to get a bunch of cash down to the crew galley to dole out the crew's pay.
Because crew gets paid in cash on ships.
Everyone gets paid on cash. It used to be, maybe not now, and so there was a lot of cash floating around, not taxed. And so that was another that also has changed, I think, since then. It was payday. It was lunchtime. and I called down to my crew purser, who was actually managing the administration of the money, and I said, Elkia, how's your cash supply? And she says, I have to go. I think I smell smoke. And then our lines got cut off. And then everyone just immediately started smelling smoke. It was a grease fire. Someone had left a pan on the crew galley stove. It sparked, went immediately up to the ventilation systems, and there was smoke coming out of the sides. It looked worse than it was, as is with there was more smoke than fire. But a grease fire was particularly bad. The front third of the ship, all the sprinklers came on. The ship was dead in the water. We were just sailing out of off of Montserrat, the island of Montserrat, not far from San Juan, and we were dead in the water. Everything was shut down. We were just floating, and we had gotten to the point where the passengers were being told to get into the life jackets and go on deck. The lifeboats came down, and then the fire was put under control. But a third of the passengers could not return to their cabins, and we had people bunked out in the dining room, in the lounges, everywhere.
So I understand why this is the worst day, but why was it the best day?
It was the best because you learn what people are made of, and you learn what you are made of. We didn't get to sleep for 3 days. We were up for 3 days straight rebooking flights. This is pre-internet, pre-maritime Marinet. Working with telexes and ship-to-shore phone calls, and American Airlines came down to San Juan and on the pier and just set up a very fast ticketing, re-ticketing system for all the passengers whose cruise was cut short. It's the times that test you and challenge you. You find out what you're made of. You find out what other people are made of. In this chaos and mayhem, there were moments of great charm and wonder and gratitude, and people were just amazed and thankful to be alive.
So you found out a lot about what other people were made of. In this experience, did you find out what you were made of? How did that experience, and I mean, I now know, you recently moved to San Francisco, and
about a year and a half ago.
About a year and a half ago. Do you miss being at sea? How are you trying to recreate that experience here on land?
Well, it's funny, women say if they could truly recall the pain of giving birth, they'd never do it again. So you just instantly remember the good parts. And the beauty of the life at the time, and I'm sure it's still true today, is the diversity of people on board, and how you have to solve problems because there's nowhere to go. You can't send anyone down the street. And in the cross trainings and in the galleys and in the safety lessons and just in general customer service issues, all of these cultural norms come into play, and it's always challenging and it's fascinating. It's a little floating UN, and the problems get solved. They get solved. They have to get solved.
Yeah, I remember one day being aboard ship. The lobster was late for dinner, and the chief chef was very upset. He was getting really annoyed, and our purser said, "You know what? It's not Bosnia. Things get solved." So maybe there's a career in diplomacy.
I don't know.
For you.
Maybe. I did look in the State Department after I left the seagoing life, but finished that, went back to school, went to grad school.
Well, we'll be looking to more conversations with Kathryn Harper, either aboard ship or on land. I'm David Perry, and we hope that here on land you'll tune in next week to watch us right here on Comcast 10%. Good night.